Welcome back to Close Encounters of the Tech Kind. I'm John, leading this conversation. It's going to be a fantastic one. We're going to dive into what is AI, where have we been, where are we at, and where are we going? Not quite sure, but we got some predictions, I think. With me today, we've got Mike
Hey everybody, how's it going?
coming to you from a remote location, kind of distant on the audio, but hey, it's going to be fun anyways. We've also got Jackson.
How's it going, everybody?
He's not distant on the audio.
Still same old, same old. Nothing's changed.
But he's still coming from a further away place than Mike, so we'll have to see how that works out. And then we've got Artie running the scenes behind the scenes.
Yeah. I'm here. I'm trying to figure out some technical difficulties.
I can't think of anybody else I'd rather have behind the controls than you, so make it snappy. No, it's all good. If you need to interrupt the show for some technical difficulties, go for it. But until then, let's dive into this. Guys, AI is a thing. We've talked a lot about it, and I want to know everybody's thoughts on how to embrace the future that's coming, because there's no way we're going to stop it. There's too much momentum. So that's going to be the second half. The first half, I want to talk about how we got to now, right? So, Mike, you've got some experience with computers. Jackson, you're kind of new to the computer thing by like 5, 6, 7 years. Let's see. How did you get into AI, Mike? When did you first hear
I was
about it?
actually fascinated even back in the 80s on my little 8-bit Commodore 64. I remember checking out a book from the library on artificial intelligence and how to write machine learning type programs and everything. And unfortunately, I mean, it was such a deep book that, in the 3 weeks that I had it before I had to turn it back in, or however long it was, like I couldn't get through all of it, but it was pretty fascinating. And that, so AI has always been an interesting topic to me from the standpoint of, can you get a machine, one, to learn from mistakes, and two, to do it efficiently, and three, after it's learned from mistakes, can it then be creative in solving problems from, based on what it's learned and everything. I think those are some of the things that I like to see AI able to do. And so it's been really interesting to watch these last few years as we've gotten closer and closer to having computers being able to do that. I probably would say I put AI on the shelf for a long time because I did take a break from computer science and I did end up going into graphic design and learned how to, draw pictures on computers and edit photos and put together layouts and books and just different things. And that's been a lot of fun in my life. But as I was going through it, then we saw, I think the next big thing that I heard about AI was watching the IBM Watson project kind of take off. And then, the probably the biggest thing everybody remembers was when it debuted on Jeopardy and they put it up against the contestants. And
That was
it's
cool.
almost like not fair. It's almost not fair because Watson has, microsecond timing on hitting the click in button to give an answer. So even though everybody, all the players probably knew the answer all at the same time, I always kind of felt like, well, it's response time of being able to like actually click in and register, hey, I've got the answer first kind of thing. So, but it was fascinating to see, and the way they presented that, like, if I remember right, they kind of showed Watson's like thought process of how it was coming to an answer or how it was interpreting the question and everything. I think that's a lot of what we see now, even today with Chat GPT and some of the other AIs, is that in some cases we do have a peek behind the scenes to see Well, I asked it this question and it gave me this answer. How did it get from here to there? And that is always fascinating too, to see the line of thinking that it follows or what it picks up on. Excuse me, and things of that nature. Of course, robots always fascinated me too. And back in the 80s, there was a lot of ideas of, connect a robot arm to your computer and make the robot do things with your computer, write a program to make it. And to me, that was more like that's automation. That's writing a program, having a machine carry it out so it can perform
It's like
some
the
kind of task.
Disney audio animatronics. It moves exactly how you tell it to move.
Right. And having been to Disneyland a few times, having seen some of their different the rides and the different presentations that they have with those audio animatronics. I mean, for its time, considering when those were conceived and built, those were actually really quite fascinating and quite a leap of technology, but it was still a preset program. Like no matter how many times you watch the show, the characters do the exact same thing. It's a
Hmm.
written script. It follows the program. So, but they all, we combine all this stuff to achieve what we ultimately want to be as a simulation or representation of the human experience, right? We've got people that are building robot machines that can walk on two legs or jump
Hmm.
or whatever and do different acrobatic tricks. But on the other side, we've got the more mental side of it of trying to think and comprehend and digest and analyze and summarize and process information in a way that's more of a natural language um, process for the human can recognize. And so then we come up with these things called these large language models. And,
Oh, no,
is
don't
it
skip forward.
AI?
Don't skip forward.
Is it AI? I don't know, but it's been a fascinating ride. And it is going to be very, very interesting to see where it goes, especially if we see how we choose to allow it to control different aspects of our lives, which is
Yeah.
one of the concerns I have right now is that so much AI is being integrated into almost every piece of software. Like, name a software title, and in the last year, the new buzzword is, "Hey, we have now a new AI feature that can help you with this." It's in our word processing, our Excel, our whatever, and it's just being so ingrained into our workflow that I kind of wonder, are we giving it too much?
Yeah. And I don't want to skip forward too fast. I definitely want to focus, 10 years ago, what was AI? 20 years ago, what was AI? Let's put it this way. My first real experience with artificial intelligence was spawning bots in Half-Life.
Mhm.
You crank the intelligence up on those things, no chance. Like, you go into one of those tournaments, and they will get a higher count than you in seconds. And yeah, we had to crank them down so they were less intelligent. It's really fun setting them all to, intelligence level 0. But Jackson, what was your first experience with AI? And I want to pepper this in with machine learning because AI is such a misnomer, right?
hmm
Nobody knows what AI means.
Right, and I don't think anyone uses the term AI the correct, like the way it should have been used anymore. And so now AI just means whatever you want it to mean, basically.
It means the marketing team failed at finding the right words.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, let's see. If I think back, like 10 years ago, what 2015, end of 2015, I feel like AI was something we saw in like an Avengers movie or something like that. It wasn't anything real or tangible. The closest thing we had to it was like Siri or Alexa or whatever, you name it. And there goes my phone. Um, um, and so having I feel like that was the closest thing that we had to it. Was like, oh, okay, you can talk to this thing and it will respond to you. And I think, if you go all the way back to the beginnings of that kind of, I don't know if is a large language model. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what they would call those. Um, but you can speak into it, and sometimes it would give you a curated answer, like something that was pre-thought out, or sometimes it seemed like it was trying to build an answer based on the question you asked or whatever it might have been, and that kind of slowly evolved until it seemed like ChatGPT hit, and that was like a huge step towards what we now see as our large language models of you being able to input a question or input some sort of text and it being able to output something that seems like it was written by another human, something that is at least grammatically correct. Don't even get me started about whether or not it's truthful or not, but I mean it'll be grammatically correct because that is all it is it is an English grammar machine.
Autocomplete on caffeine.
Yeah.
An
Yeah.
unhealthy dose of caffeine. I remember when Google first introduced the autocomplete in the search, where it's like, I'm searching for car, and it would fill in seats, belts, just all the different possibilities. And the system was actually searching those behind the
It
scenes.
actually amazed me on the autocomplete how many times I start to type that in. And like, let's say the first word is really generic and top level, like automobile, right? Like, think of all the different kinds of automobiles that I could potentially ask about, right? But then within like three more keystrokes or something, it's already like the top result, top one, two, or third result is exactly what I'm thinking about.
So
Like,
I had an
what are the
experience.
chances of that like happening?
I had experience driving around and flying around and working in schools across the country. It's all regional based. So I would sit down at a new school, let's say it's in North Carolina, and I'd start searching for restaurants near me. Okay, so you would expect restaurants near me. If I start searching for something pertaining to the computer I'm working on, a software I'm working on, it will give me results tailored to that region. And we're talking 15 years ago.
Mhm.
Yep.
So it was interesting how they built that out.
It was the beginnings of all of the data brokerage that goes on now.
Hmm.
Even
So that
even to that with search engine results, just to write the scripting and the algorithms to try to bring you the most relevant and bring that to the top, percent matches to what it is you're looking for and everything. And sometimes sometimes the top results are what I want and what I really need, but sometimes the real answer that I needed wasn't necessarily a top result. So I kind of think that that is maybe a driving force of what pushed them to keep refining it to get where we're at now.
yeah,
So we have this thing now that can really analyze the question that you're asking and come up with the most correct answer.
yeah. Hey, Artie, what do you define the difference of machine learning versus AI? You
Okay.
can use AI to look up the answer.
No, I'm not going to. The difference in my perspective of what actual artificial intelligence would be versus machine learning is the AI will be able to seek out the information to learn from. Whereas machine learning, it's taught, it's told how to find that information. So that there's sort of a bit of agency.
Like autonomy kind of thing?
Sort of.
Self-direction?
Yeah. At least in regards to this. I think one of the other big things that differentiates the two is that machine learning requires an outside hand. And, metaphysically speaking, we all have like an outside hand that pushed us in the right direction, but it's not something that is actively setting the information in front of us and saying, scan through all of this and all the answers that you need are going to be in there. I don't know, maybe I'm not in the right frame of mind for that question.
No, I think it's perfect. It's human. Jackson, what's the difference between AI and machine learning?
The way I see it is machine learning is designed to complete a very specific task, right? So, for example, maybe we're trying to sort out good apples from bad apples in an assembly line or something like that. You would use machine learning on that vision system to uh, essentially, quote unquote, teach it what is a good apple and what is a bad apple. And that requires you to give it data. You give it test data, and you say, okay, uh, this is a good apple, good apple, good apple. This is what a bad apple looks like. And you continuously test it, and then what you do is in your software you will set and if it's something more complicated, sometimes you have certain weights on certain items, right? And the sum of all of these weights will result in a decision that the machine will make, right? And that's kind of the way I see machine learning, and that is kind of the goal of it. Whereas AI is, I mean, the hodgepodge of what we call AI now is basically just trying to do it all, I guess,
The
and
computer
trying
does it for
to,
you.
yeah, kind of like that, yeah. Whereas machine learning is it's kind of like an enhanced robotics is the way I see it. Is we use machine learning to um, give a leg up on these robotic systems, um, and vision systems is what comes to mind the fastest. Like something that you can't really teach a computer or a robot to see, but you kind of can with machine learning. You can kind of teach it.
Mhm.
This is what good stuff looks like. This is what bad stuff looks like.
Mike, what's your thoughts on that real quick? Because I want to springboard off that onto the next one.
So I actually went and I looked up the definition of intelligence,
Oh,
just
cheater.
intelligence. Okay. And the top definition is the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. So I think a lot of what we talk about, we can get there with machine learning covers the ability to acquire knowledge. We can send some kind of a machine out and have it collect data information. We send a space probe out and it takes pictures of every planet, moon, and whatever else it passes, and it's collecting, right? It's the application I think that gets us hung up on whether or not these machines or computers can actually apply it. And it can probably go through and analyze all the data and determine what the best course of action could be in a certain situation. If I'm given this many people in a population and this thing happens, what's the best escape route? But and we've got the environment, the terrain, all the different factors. It can analyze all that information and say, oh, well, here's the evacuation plan. But is that the best one? Because applying knowledge and skills is not just applying what makes the most sense. It's applying it to some moral standard, I think. And I don't think we're going to have a very easy time applying moral standards because we can't even apply moral standards to ourselves in society. There's so many different cultures and everything that have differing moral standards. So who's to say which one is the more superior? So having a machine try to decide what a moral standard should be, that gets us into the problems that we see in all the science fiction movies where the robots go off the rails because they think that their moral standard is better than what humanity's is. And so therefore let's wipe out humanity because humanity doesn't deserve to live here. Something like that. So there's times when the rules have to be bent and broken. I think real intelligence is the ability to determine when it's right or wrong to do that. And you could argue that instead of calling that intelligence, you could call that wisdom. Because I remember it
Well,
said a lot is that intelligence is gathering information, knowing a lot, but wisdom is the ability to know how to use what you've learned and what you've experienced.
yeah, yeah, I agree, and it's a matter of what is it that we're doing. So I like what you say with the moral because that was a thought that happened in one of the TV shows I love. Um, Probably the biggest, most negative impact to the entire planet was I want to say this right, Thomas Midgley Jr., who was working with Freon in refrigerators. So he allowed us to carry produce from place to place. Um, but the downstream impact is we now have holes in the ozone and massive environmental impact. So he saved the planet and ruined it all in the same time. So does AI give him a thumbs up or a thumbs down? What does it learn?
Right. And
We
that's
have to
just
tell the machines what is what.
and maybe to some extent that's a thing that the machines have to understand is that just because we piled a bunch of data into it, that doesn't mean that is the complete data. Like time will tell over time whether a choice was right or wrong. And a
Yeah,
machine has to be able to figure out like what if new data becomes available and I find out that this was like absolutely the wrong thing to do, kind of thing.
yeah. Back in the 1930s, refrigeration saved millions of people. Now it's the result of major catastrophe. So hindsight's 2020, right? I think the difference between machine learning and artificial intelligence, we're not going to cross that bridge anytime soon. I think machine learning is, let's take the analogy of Boston Dynamics and the robots they're putting together, teaching it to walk bipedal, pushing it, watching it do flips. It's learning how to do that over and over and over. But if we take that same model and you put it towards like a three-legged thing, it has no idea how to interact with space and environments.
Hmm.
Artificial intelligence is a misnomer. I don't think we've got it yet. It's something that can look at a situation and extrapolate data from its known data set. It can't look it up and tell you. So, like you were saying, flying through space, taking pictures of planets, um, it won't be able to tell you the meaning behind those pictures.
Hmm.
You take a picture of Neptune. Okay, great. Is it something we can colonize? AI is not going to be able to figure that out unless you feed in all the data, and it has to learn about that data and put it through its paces. We have to train it. Probably an easy way to say it is you can't train artificial intelligence. You can train machine learning.
Another aspect I see to that is the ability to creatively and independently think. Humans have the ability to just say, I have an idea of something totally new, something that hasn't been done before. And a lot of times, granted that the ideas come from a need. You said earlier that we needed a way to ship produce and perishable goods or store them without them going bad in, just under a week or whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
And so out of that, we figured out that, well, to start off with, we can harvest ice from places where there's ice and keep it, and that'll help keep the food cold. But ice doesn't last forever. We need something else. And so then we come up with mechanical refrigeration. And it was something that was invented because there was a need. to some extent that there are ways that the AI I've looked at so far, ChatGPT or something, it can come up with solutions, but it feels like that it's solutions that are based on other ideas that have already happened, or someone has already proposed that, maybe just never fully executed it.
It
But
doesn't
it's
know
not
how
like
to extrapolate.
it's not a complete out of the box, oh wow, no one has ever thought of this before kind of thing. And the other thing is that that's where a concern has come, especially in the arts industries, film, TV, painting, whatever you call it, is that AI is generating all this art, but it's really art that's based on other works. And people are rightly mad that, well, if it's based on something that I did, shouldn't I get part of that credit, and everything? And
Do you know
it's
why?
kind of,
Do you know why it has a hard time with fingers and hands and positions?
and that's the other thing is that it doesn't understand what it's looking at. It knows that it sees this. I know I see these appendages and these things, but it doesn't understand that, oh, every human I look at has this. And a normal human, if they don't have any birth defects or haven't had an accident happen to them, they should all look like this. And it's that creative thinking that's just missing to be able to think outside the box, to come up with new ideas, that in order for it to do that, it's still going to need to be guided by a human that can do that. That's going to be able to look and go,
So
okay, you like that, but do this, but now do this, but now do this. And chat never would have thought to do that on its own.
yeah. So we got a good understanding of where we got to now, that AI is not intelligent. It's just mimicking, right?
Hmm.
Like machine learning can learn a task, sorting apples, um, you know, whatever it
Oh,
is you put it in, it comes out and it will do it better and better each time, but it won't have context. It won't have relation. It won't know what the taste of an apple is. It can simulate it, but we're at a point where we're putting robots into place and we're putting machine learning against those robots. So I want to kind of bend the conversation. I don't want to spend too much on today where we stand with AI. I want to talk about a year from now. What's going to happen? We've got robots that are being introduced. We've got self-driving cars. We've had them for a while and they're just getting better and better at it. What does 1 year from today look like? The cool part is we'll be able to look back and see if we're right. Jackson.
yeah. Yeah, I feel like a year from now, um, I don't know that. I mean, I don't know that we're gonna see anything too radically different from what we already have. Um, it's really hard to say, especially when we think about where developments are being made in quantum computing.
Mhm.
How that might change the AI scene that we now see, right? We have an AI that thinks, linearly, but with quantum computing, you can imagine it thinking in all these different possibilities at once, and then it can kind of pick the best one as far as whatever it's defined to do. Um, my
We can
theory
see the
is
multiverse.
right. My theory is that there really is. I don't know that it's possible to create a machine that can extrapolate, that can actively learn, um, and understand what it's learning, the importance of it, and the applications of it. I just from a pure standpoint of how code works, everything is set in stone. AI is still set in stone. It's all just a bunch of algorithms that are, attempting to replicate um, reality, I guess is what I would say. So even a year, even a decade from now, even 20 years from now, I'm not sure I see AI really being able to make that leap into creativity and creation. I think that's something that is unique about us humans is we create, we design, and we engineer. And
So what?
I'm
Let me target the question then. Given
yeah.
that, I'm not disagreeing with you one bit. What's it going to look like a year from now? Because we're talking about robots coming in to do labor.
Right. So I think, when we talk about that, I think these LLMs and these machine learning algorithms are getting so good that I think a lot of, you kind of hinted at this last week, a lot of these labor jobs, right? When purely what it is labor is robots are gonna start taking that over, right? We've proven that machine learning is quite useful with computer vision. We
Mhm.
can get computers to see things pretty well in the way that we see them. And when that combined with the physical labors is what makes up your job, then I wouldn't want to tell you to not be worried, right? I think there is something that you should be thinking about is okay, is my job still going to be here in the next year or two, or is a fleet of robots going to come replace me um, with some machine learning behind it?
Mike, year from now, what do you think?
I think I'm with Jackson in that the mundane, repetitive, assembly line kind of jobs, which this has always been, ever since we were able to put a machine on the assembly line to do something, that's always been the concern because one machine probably in the long term costs far less than the six or eight, 10 workers or whatever that it just replaced, you know. And all they needs now is just one guy to maintain it, every day for the rest of the life of the machine and everything. So I think there's gonna maybe be more of that. I know that obviously labor unions, that'd be something they'd want to push back against, because they want to protect the jobs of people. So I
The
don't know.
Screen Actors Guild successfully got their contracts to omit AI, which I think was
Yeah,
brilliant.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's what's scary too, is that I'm seeing more and more things on little clips on social media with the video AI generators of their simple clips, and they're still very obviously AI because I'm watching little inconsistencies, or it's just like the reality is not quite right. In fact, for some reason, I keep getting railroad themed ones. And to say that AI goes off the rails in some cases, it's quite literally because you're watching things go off the rails. It's like that's not how that works.
Watch
But
Back to the Future 3 too
part,
many times.
but as far as the rendering and the appearance of the people and the trees and the vegetation and the scene and where the appearance of that is very, very lifelike. That in certain circumstances, when the scene is kept simple and there are no noticeable flaws in it, it's like how do I know that this is real? Is it real or is it memorex? Kind of thing. And there was a video actually I just saw earlier before we got on for the show that it's this warning against AI, and it's basically illustrating how people can take pictures that have been posted on social media and manipulate them with AI in such a way that now it can turn it into an older version of the person, some other human being, some that could potentially be used to scam you, um, uh, voice duplication, things like that. It's just it's very concerning.
Mhm.
And with some of the clips I've seen, like that's entirely possible because how do I know that the face I'm looking at isn't actually a real face based on a picture? Now they've just made a video out of it, kind of thing.
So
So back to the question where I see it, I
yeah.
still see it. It's going to be a big factor in the labor market. It's going to take over some mundane jobs. It's going to make some companies some profit. But as far as actual creation, it's still going to be a number of years before we see an actual, um, I don't know what the word is, like a real creative or mock faux creative. It's going to seem like it's creative, but I still think it's going to be like humanly influenced. It's still going to be a while before we get there. It's just not, and maybe that's more of a hope than it is anything else. I don't want AI to really advance too much further than it already
I
has.
I th-
Well,
I predict in a year between 5 and 10% of labor jobs are going to go to robots or automation of some sort.
Mhm.
We're going to have deliveries by robot. So if you're talking like Waymo, they're just now rolling out, moving into the highways. It's going to go 75 miles an hour without a driver.
uh-oh.
That's a little frightening. But people are starting to get used to this idea, right? You get in a car and it just drives, and you get to your destination, you get out and you pay your bill, and you're done. We're going to get to the point where truck drivers, the big semi drivers, are going to have competition for distribution center to store, because it's just site to site. It's not end user deliveries. That's going to be human for a long time, maybe. But I predict now. Now you mentioned what talked about last week. Labor is traded by most people, about half the people, for money right now. You go get a job, it's moving, it's grocery store stocking, checking people out. Great, that's moving along. You're driving the truck, you're checking the produce, you're picking the produce, you're putting all these things together. There's humans involved in every step of that way. And the more we put towards this into machine learning, the less you're going to need a human to do that role. And there's going to be so many companies coming up to do this. It's going to be like the United Auto Workers versus the robots in Detroit. And I remember as a kid hearing about that, and I knew they were just trying to placate the auto workers by saying, no, your jobs are safe. You can move into maintaining the robots. You can move into coding the robots. No, they didn't. A very small percentage of the people stayed on, but the majority of the factory line workers were replaced by robots doing repetitious work. And I hate to say it, but they were doing it more accurate in and out. Mike, you remember the adage, don't buy a car that was made on a Monday or a Friday?
Mhm.
Why was that? Jackson, you know that one?
No, but that just clicked in my
I
head.
imagine it's because the mistakes are going to be higher because Friday everybody's wanted to check out, get out of work for the weekend, and on Monday they've forgotten half of what was going on and they got to ramp up to production again.
That was the adage, right? Now it doesn't matter because everything's equalized because it's automated. You know, it's painted for
And it's
exactly 3
always
minutes
been
and 42 seconds.
a machine is not just to replace one person. In most cases I've ever seen, a machine is going to replace a group of people.
Mhm.
It's in a way it's a superhuman kind of a thing. Like, and that's how it's always been talked about. Like, this machine can do the work of 12 men or whatever, or 12 people you want to call it, you know. And so then how does a CEO not look at that and go, man, think of the money I can save because I'm paying wages, benefits, et cetera, on 12 people, and I can replace it for just the maintenance cost of one machine.
Yeah,
So
and
what does the economy do? Go ahead, Jackson.
sorry, I was gonna, and I've been sitting on this thought for a second now, as I was thinking about, what what kind of job security do people that do physical labor have? Um, and even with any job, we kind of lump it all into, yeah, it's just a labor job. But there is a certain amount of training and skill that often goes into these jobs. Some of them, it's even a large amount of skill, and it's this. It takes time to learn that muscle memory of, okay, how to do this task, even if it is the same task you do all day long and day in and day out. Sometimes depending on what it is, you can throw somebody in there in their first day and they'll be frankly terrible, right? Until they get, that physical training in there. And I was thinking, there's been a lot of talk recently with these humanoid robots, and we talked about this, maybe if it wasn't last week, a couple weeks ago, about what does that look like, and I feel like all the videos we see now are them falling over, and it's just kind of funny, and we're finding out that they're all controlled really by somebody in a VR headset. Or
did you see the one
personal butler?
The robot reaches up like this, lifts like this, and then falls backwards?
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I think I even saw that today. And so I was thinking, like, these things are brand new, right? And I feel like we keep acting like, oh, it's not going to go anywhere because, like, look at how bad it is. But we forget that, like, that's how tech always goes. The first edition always sucks. But that's the thing.
Tesla self-driving cars.
Yeah. I mean, you name anything.
If you looked at a human baby or toddler, you would think the exact same thing. Like, there's nothing that's going to come of this thing. Look at it.
No chance.
It can barely roll around on the floor. Like, what the heck?
But what I'm afraid for, and I'll tell you what I think would need to happen for this to really, really happen, is once these things get good, a lot of because we've also had this discussion of, okay, well, would you rather have a humanoid robot in your house that can do everything, or would you rather have specialized robots to clean your floors, load your dishwasher, to do your laundry, and something that wouldn't take on this shape at all? And it's the same thing when we talk about automation. Like, when we talk about automotive assembly, none of those are even humanoid. None of them look like a human arm. They are very specialized robots to drill holes, to bolt things together, to weld things together. Now, the thing is, to make a transition like that in your business, say you have an assembly line that has traditionally been run by humans, and now you want to make this transition to robots, but there is no humanoid robot that can do that job, right? It's just not sophisticated enough yet. So you have to make this huge transition, and that's a big upfront cost. Now, for automotive companies, it's not that big of a deal because they have that kind of capital in the background. Now, talking about some of these smaller jobs where maybe to replace a human, it's currently, with the current technology, it's going to take before 5 robots to be able to complete the job that a human hands and feet can do, right? Where I'm seeing this happening is if these humanoid robots do get good enough, then you have these labor jobs that would take multiple kinds of robots, because the world we live in is built for humans, right? We've had that conversation. It's built for humans. So once you integrate a humanoid robot into that, then it can actually run in and kind of take a lot of those jobs out with just some machine learning. Where I think they're lacking now is, you think about even just the human hand, right? The way we move our fingers and like the way we can spread them apart. I mean, and I looked it up. The human body has like somewhere around like 600 muscles in it. And I don't know how many are just in your hands, right? To manufacture a robot that has 600 emulated muscles is going to be extremely mechanically complex and just difficult to manufacture. And that's why it doesn't exist. And so what these companies done, if they've taken the human body and simplified it down to, a couple of motors for each joint. And that's where it's missing that kind of intricate control. And so I think once they figure out how to get more control, and more fake muscles into these robots to really get that fine tuning that they want, I don't think we'll see it get that sophisticated, because it can only get so good with lateral movement.
That the addition of muscles, that was actually the biggest revolution in animation. So you'd have detailed cartoons like Toy Story, not cartoons. You'd have 3D animations like Toy Story. Well, when you went to Shrek, its revolution was you had more points of articulation, more layers, more muscles, so you'd have more accurate movements on the face. And it's mimicking a human. Same with hair. It bundles things together to mimic what it should look like. If anybody's curious, check out the Shrek outtakes. The mistakes on the renders. Those are hilarious.
I've seen that. That is hilarious.
Have you ever seen a Shrek retold? On
Yes.
Watch at your own demise, I guess.
So a year from now, I think we're all agreeing that a piece of labor is going to move towards some sort of automation. Factory lines, that's going to move. I'm going to say 3 years from now, we're going to have robots that can do standing remedial jobs. And I don't want to demean anybody, but for anybody that's cleaned a bathroom, like a public restroom or a restroom at like a McDonald's or an Arby's, you feel pretty remedial doing it. If a robot can do that and do it perfect every time, and me as a business owner, that robot's going to cost me, let's say, $50,000, and I've got clean bathrooms from now for the next 2 years for $50,000, I don't have to pay somebody to go do that. Well, let's do that. Just make sure it washes his hands before it does anything else. I think in 3 years, we're going to see a replacement of 20, maybe 25% of the labor force. Now, I mentioned it in the last one. 24% is what the Great Depression had. The Great Depression was 24% unemployment. So we got to find something. Just as a society, we got to find something to do for these people that's meaningful and productive. They've got to be able to trade labor for something.
Well, instead of cleaning
So is
toilets,
this
they
thing
can
on?
be cleaning robots.
Cleaning robots, servicing robots.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that you can't completely replace a human. A human's got to be in there at some point because robots, I mean, we talk about this all the time. Technology fails at some point. So somebody's got to be there to service it or to kind of overwatch it in some form.
It's gonna break. I think the jobs that are safe are those like farming. Is the strawberry ripe or is it sour? Is it good? Is it bad? Maybe a robot could do that, but that robot can't take skills from one harvest to another harvest. I've seen so many attempts. I mean, John Deere would be a great example of how building computers into the tractors has majestically failed. Look at the repair bills and the right to repair contest that's going on in DC. But computer repair will definitely be a thing. What other jobs survive? I want to talk hope. I don't want to talk doom and gloom because it really feels doom and gloom.
I think anything that requires development, right? I still hold my opinion that creation is reserved for humans. I don't think it will really come to AI anytime soon, or at all, if you ask me. But I think if you find a way to innovate, to create, to design, or engineer, anything like that, your job isn't going to go away. It's only actually going to be amplified by these tools that you can use as a resource.
So you're going to be doing better things, easier, cheaper, and faster.
I think so. I think we've seen that too.
Artie, what do you think? What can humans do that robots can't in 3 years?
Um, well, an obvious one I'm not going to mention. Um,
Can I think in okay, maybe it's not obvious to me. Don't mention it though.
yeah, no, not going to. Um, I
Find
think,
something that's radio safe and say that one.
I mean, yeah, there are a lot of things. I mean, you were talking about like the vibe programmers at some point, either pre-show or previous instance, and no computer is going to no artificial intelligence in the next, I'm going to guess about 10 to 20 years is going to be able to code as well as a person can and find the same mistakes, solve the same mistakes. It will give like tools that will make it easier for people, but it's not going to be able to write its own programs.
You remember the holodeck,
Yes.
Mike, on Star Trek Next Generation?
Yep.
And just the people saying, "Hey, do this," and the holodeck does it, but does it bad. It does it wrong. Like,
Yeah,
think.
and that's probably actually see that's where I see us right now. Like, is that going to be? That's the thing is that I don't know that this artificial intelligence is ever going to be able to completely read our minds. Like,
No.
we have to be so specific with the prompts to make sure that we get what we really meant to get. Otherwise, we get stuff that goes off the rails, or it's just like that's not even remotely close to what I want, kind of thing, As
So
far
what
as
jobs
coding,
survive?
I think it's going to be more high level jobs, to summarize it really. You know, to be able to come up with an idea of, as far as coding, like, I need a program that does this or script that does this, and then to guide the AI, like, it's doing the grunt work of actually typing in the code and coming up with the actual functions and different things, and you test it to make sure it does what you want to do. Because this right now, there is a project I'm working on. This has been my workflow, and it's taken me a while to get the AI to really pay attention and to lock in changes at certain steps of the way. But I'm the one testing it, and I've found that it started where it's like, instead of just write me a script, it's me asking, now what if I want to add this feature? Because
Mhm.
I'm coming up with the ideas for the features. Now I want to add this feature. So then it looks at the existing codes like, okay, we can add it here by doing this and this and this. And instead of the AI doing it for me, it's giving me the ideas of where I insert the new additions of code. So then I go and do it, because then it gives me the opportunity to double check and say, okay, it says I can do this. Does that make sense with what I'm already seeing in the overall program? Yes, that does. Does that? And I've been very specific to tell the AI, make sure you don't break anything that's already working. Make sure you don't change anything that I haven't told you to change. Don't start getting all invented and completely invent a new program right in the middle of working on this project. And as long as you can
Focus on
keep it,
lines 17 to 23 only.
yeah, sometimes, I mean, that's really what it gets down to. But just coming up with the ideas, AI's not coming up with the ideas for me. I'm the one coming up with the ideas, because I test the program and I see where it falls short. And I'm the one that has the vision in my head of what I want this thing to do. And so that's what spurs me to come up with the next idea. Okay, now here's what's going to make my life easier. We need to add a function that does this. Okay, now that's working. Now we need to take it in this direction, and we need to add just one more little thing to make it do this. AI's not doing that. I'm the one who's doing that. And those are the kinds of jobs, to be able to have the vision and the idea and to tell AI where to go and to give the instructions. Now, this means, people, you got to be someone who's going to be a take charge and give direction kind of a person. You can't just sit there and, I'm the guy who gets told what to do. Because, like we just talked about, those are the kinds of jobs that are going to go away, that AI is going to take over. They're taking over the I get told what to do jobs.
Like warehousing. Like Amazon just said they're
Yeah.
gonna have 630,000 jobs manned by robots, and they're not manned anymore because they're roboted.
Mhm.
And I think it's shocking on its face value because Amazon is growing, but the viable workforce isn't. I don't know if you guys know about this one. 5-6 years ago, Amazon had a internal release, and it leaked that they had burned through almost all of the eligible workers in the United States. They had something like a year and a half left of viable work. So your standard tenure at Amazon was 0.7 years because you can't handle the pressure and they kick you out and you can't come back because you couldn't make it before. So they had to rethink, Amazon had to rethink, how do we employ people? That's when they brought up the contracting models. So they're not hiring you, they're hiring contractors.
Going back to the what can these machines do versus what can people do? Listening to Mike, I got the idea that anything that requires variation, anything that requires outside the box thinking when you meet it, like the idea that's coming to mind is person goes in for surgery and the surgeon opens up the body and finds that organs aren't where they're supposed to be anatomically, like person has genetic defect or some kind of mutation, and like the intestines are swung right to left instead of left to right.
Mm-hmm.
If it is a machine that is going based upon what it's been programmed with, what it's learned, there is very little chance that it's going to perform the operation appropriately because the mirror hasn't been placed in there. So it's going to look for the problem where the problem's not. You can account for that, but it happens so seldomly that it would not be something that anybody would, really think to put in there as an option. And it would require
Not yet.
an entire
Yeah.
new
The
database.
human has to figure out.
Yes.
A human needs to look at it and say, hey, this is a thing.
But also with your
on the fly. Yeah.
Also with your thing with like picking fruit. I mean, they can check it for color. Okay, it's red, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's ripe.
How squishy is it?
Yeah. There are things that require multiple variables to look at. And even stocking shelves.
What's it smell like?
Even stocking shelves. If there is something in the wrong spot on a shelf and it tries to go and stock things there, it's going to knock stuff over.
Can I tell you a little short story there?
Sure.
Yeah.
So at the grocery store that I go to, there is a specific brownie mix that I really like that I'll get occasionally. And one day, now this was months ago, I go to the spot where I know this brownie mix is at, and the same brand has like an identically flavored cake mix. And the cake mix had been put where the brownie mix was supposed to go. And I was like, oh, so I dug through it, found there was one in the back that was still there. Pulled that out. I was like, okay, cool. I was like, I'm sure it'll fix. It's been months now. They keep restocking the cake mix just because that's the thing that's there. And so I can't get my brownie mix anymore. And it drives me nuts.
That's hilarious.
The error is human. to really mess things up takes AI. So let's. I want to move a little fast at this one because we're running low on time. What does 10 years or 12 years look like? We're going to have computers and robots doing better and better. We're going to be using our brains and hooking up different things, like the medical stuff we were talking about. It has been proven that AI can detect anomalies in chest x-rays way more accurately than humans. Find early onset diseases, find early onset problems, find blood flow issues. And it's those simple diagnostics that I think are going to get taken over. But much to your point, Mike, it's the connecting the dots. Okay, so somebody's got a blood flow issue in the lung, blood flow issue in the brain, blood flow issue in the leg. What's the diagnosis? Somebody's going to have to invent the system, the AI, that links all that together and correctly diagnoses from there. But the edge cases are always going to fall off. We're always going to need a human to look at things.
We can just ask WebMD. It's cancer and you're dying.
Low blood flow. The patient is missing its heart.
Suggest installing a second heart for redundancy.
10, 12 years. I mean, you brought up the labor statistic that, on one hand, it used to be that we had more people unemployed just because there weren't enough jobs for them to do, and that's always been like a sub, seems to me like it's always been a sub 10% for most of my life, that there's always just a small percentage of unemployed. But to that extent too, I also think that there's a lot. I don't know how unemployment is counted. Are they counting out of the total population? Do they factor in for the fact that there's druggies and winos just on the street that have no desire to get a job whatsoever,
It
or is it
depends
just
on the
because
politician who needs to prove their point as to how they count the numbers.
I know it's all subjective, isn't it? But in any case, like what happens when we really do get to a point where we almost always, even if there is a new job, we almost always go first to filling it with a machine and an AI before we go to a human, you know? And is there going to be opportunity for people to even work? And if that gets to a point where we have such a large part of society that can't work simply because there really just isn't anything for them to do to make money at, like what is our government going to do for us? Like, how are we going to get taken care of? How's that all going to happen? I hope it doesn't turn into a crisis that soon in my life. But I hope that I think that that is a track that we're going towards, and that's something that needs to be thought about, that I don't know if we're going to have an answer for by the time it happens. I really worry about that.
And that's
So,
kind of where I wanted to have this discussion is what can we do to prepare for machines doing all the work? You got a robot maid that cleans the house. You got a robot car that drives you from place to place. Family time would be more meaningful. Hang out with the kids all day.
I mean, maybe the answer is that I gotta go out and buy a robot to go do work for me, and I rent out my robot. I mean, maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's something along those lines. I don't know.
It's going to move fast. Let's ponder this, guys, because society needs to come up with the answers here. And I worry that it's going to be class-based. It's going to be economy-based. Those large economies like the United States, Germany, Great Britain, where there's a lot of cash, a lot of wealth, they're the first ones to get robots. Third world countries won't have robots. We have a chance to embrace utopia, a society that lives and grows and celebrates each other. And I hope we take that. Hardy, I'll give you the final thought on this.
Wasn't expecting that. I think that
Why I picked you.
there is, I'm hopeful, but I've also read a lot of science fiction.
Mhm.
And a lot of the authors have like explored these quandaries considerably.
Mm-hmm.
And if we do not take a path that is beneficial for all of humanity, it is going to be a detriment to all of humanity.
That's a very good thought. If we're worried about short-term quarterly gains, humanity will suffer. It's a good summation there. Well, I want to pick this up next time. I don't want to talk to AI again for a while because I think this could get nuts. But if anybody has a good idea what to do with the human condition and how to influence AI, let's talk about that. I'd love to see what's going on in the comments. Until next time, I'm John.
I'm Mike.
I'm Jackson.
And I am going to go read more.
Well, have a good night, everybody.